Cinder Birchmore had good friends, she had a good job, she had dreams of becoming a nurse, and she had a child on the way. But Mr. Farwell did not share in that excitement. It's alleged that Mr. Farwell reacted quite negatively to the news that Cinder Birchmore was pregnant with his child. And he acted angrily, it is alleged, when Cinder Birchmore started making requests of Mr. Farwell around doctor's appointments and ultrasounds and what information would be on the birth certificate. Mr. Farwell was losing control in late 2020, early 2021, and the information that Cinder Birchmore possessed about his illegal conduct was in danger of slipping out. In fact, word started to get out about their relationship. Less than 2 weeks before she was found dead, someone called the Stoughton Police Department and disclosed that Mathew Farwell had had a relationship with Cinder Birchmore. And when Mr. Farwell learned about that call, he became visibly angry. Mr. Farwell, it is alleged in these court papers, started to lose his patience, lose his temper, and the 6'4" Mr. Farwell started to be physically violent with 4'10" Cinder Birchmore. And Cinder Birchmore told her friends that Mr. Farwell had pushed her and shoved her and put her in a chokehold.
Welcome to the show, folks. Young Jerks, we're dealing night 2, kind of celebratory, but it's also difficult material. I should have put a trigger warning on all of this stuff. Obviously, it's very difficult material, the Cinder Birchmore, and especially if you're like a lot of us, been reading all the court documents, the affidavits, and the indictment of Mathew Farwell. We're going to be talking about that tonight again. It happened yesterday. He was arrested, federally indicted. We got 2 special guests back on the show to discuss this tonight. I'm wicked excited about this. Let's bring them up. First, we got returning. She's been a huge advocate for Cinder Birchmore. She's been doing standouts. She's done so many shows. I know she's probably done like 50 shows in the last day or two because everyone wants to talk to her right now. So we're wicked excited to have her. She was just on another show before us, Calling All Beings, I know. So and last night, I think she did Banfeld. She did LTL. I know she did another show. I think Sean maybe. She was everywhere last night and today. So let's bring her up. I hope she's up for it. I hope she's not too tired right now. I'm sure she's not. Welcome back to the show, Missy.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm tired, but I'm good.
Awesome.
I got my Mountain Dew, so I'm ready to rock and roll.
There we go. That's what I need. I also got his water right now. I should have made myself some coffee tonight. But we'll be good. I don't think I need it tonight because I got you here, which I'm excited back after the last 48 hours. It's like we got to have Missy back. And
yeah.
I was messaging you and saying, which night, please, please, please.
I know. I was like, we already had a meeting planned for about something. And then, I already had Brian's penciled in at 8. And then I was like, what time? And then it just didn't connect. But hey, I'm here tonight. And I wasn't on a lot of shows today. So I was on Calling All Beings and now just you tonight.
And so it said, Missy, it's all because of you. Missy, the chat is blowing up over you right now. So everyone's very happy you're here.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Well, it's the FBI who arrested him, thankfully, where Michael Morrissey's office didn't. But the groundswell, I'll take credit for that, but not the, getting him arrested. That was all the work of the FBI.
Absolutely. And we got a special guest coming back on the show tonight, returning. He was on the show last time for the first time with you. I think this is his third time actually on our show, but I think the first time it's the second time. Second time, but it was the first time he talked about Birchmore with you on the show. That's what it was. We have him coming back. He's a retired FBI special agent. He's got a long resume. He's done a lot of things with the FBI and law enforcement. He's also a law enforcement consultant right now. Welcome back to the show, Rob D'Amico.
Hey, good to be back.
Good to be back, especially having you here today since the FBI has become the focus in a lot of what's going on in Massachusetts right now. So I figured it
Yeah.
would be perfect time to have you back.
But it is the third time. I did one with you on Karen Reed.
That's right. So this is the third episode with us.
Yeah.
Excellent. And so I guess where do you guys want to start? Where do you want to start? I'll ask Missy
Can
that.
I say something that I said to you before Rob popped on before in private? I want to say it publicly. You know, I am thankful that you got us in contact because, you know, Rob has been giving me such great advice behind the scenes, and it's been amazing help. I'll just say it that way. You know, it's been invaluable to help me. What he's, you know, to lend an ear for me to bounce things off of. So I very much appreciate you, Mike, for, you know, extending for us to come together. And, you know, we did Banfield last night together. So
You did what last night?
we were on Banfield. Both of us were on Banfield.
Oh, you were both on the same show last night.
Yeah.
That was what, News Nation? Is that the
Yep.
network?
It's the second time we were on. The first time, unfortunately, there was she was still on vacation, and you know it was good to get on, but again, the anchor didn't know the story as well as she did. Last night, she went through the whole thing. I mean, she's such an advocate of it and knows the facts so well. Towards the end, I'm like, what am I going to put in? Because she said everything that was out there. She really brought it up. But then at the end, she had a couple questions for Missy, for me, that, you know, tied it up. But it's good that an anchor so strongly into a case like that.
Yeah. So
you guys have spent 2 nights in a row on the same shows. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
we have.
Tonight's a letdown. You were on national television last
No,
night.
no,
Now you're on
no.
our YouTube.
No, because we could actually have a conversation tonight. Like when you do a show like Banfield, it's like you're there and it's like a couple
Yeah.
questions and then you're
Boom,
gone.
over.
Like
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
say,
there's such a
"Thank you."
difference between doing news commentary, you know, because it is a 3 to 5 minute hit. They're going to ask their question. These are a lot more fun. You get into it, and you know, at the end of it, you like an hour and a half, 2 hours at times goes by so quick compared to the other one. It's like, what did I say? You don't even remember what you
Yeah,
said.
I
The next
know. All
5
right.
minutes.
Yeah.
You got to go back and look at it and say, oh, I should have said this, but
Yeah.
this is such a different, you know, a different venue to do it and discuss it.
Yeah,
And
I've done
also
some
on
large.
your show, you're not like, all right, goodbye, click.
Yeah.
Like they're kind
That's
of
what I was gonna say. I've done some larger media too, and it's funny because you get anxious, and there's all this preparation and waiting, and sometimes I don't call when and so it's like more spent on that, and then the next thing you know, like you said, it's over, and you're like, what did I say? Did I?
Yeah.
Oh shit!
You're like,
Well, that, and you talk about they drop you in a second, like I get it, like it's news, so it's whatever's out there. But I mean, I do CNN, NBC, MSNBC, all of them, and it's you can almost predict when they're going to drop you, but you got to be prepped for it, and then you don't know what they won't tell you the questions they're going to ask because they,
Right.
you know, it's a media, integrity thing. So you look up all this stuff, and even if you do it, they ask a question out of left field that you weren't even
Exactly.
expecting, or like I said, it's like nightly NBC nightly news. I'll do that one, and it's like 7 million viewers, so it's huge. But they take from 4 or 5 minutes to take a 30-second clip, and you just hope they take a decent one. But you know, since it's taped, they just figure out what they want to hit in, and then you're like, oh, okay, that was 30 seconds of. I hope it was a good answer.
yeah,
Bingo.
I agree with that.
So it was last night was good though because they covered it extensively.
Yes.
They spent
Yeah.
Yeah, she really did. I think it was almost 15 minutes to
Yeah.
it, which is
Yeah.
long for national news on a story. But she covered every aspect of the indictment, of what's going on. She had a local reporter that's covered the case too. So I was kind of wondering at the end what she was. I'm like, wow, she like covered everything. So,
Yeah.
but it's still good.
excellent. So let's talk about this indictment in the FBI investigation. And I think that's kind of lighting everyone up on social media is about this Massachusetts State Trooper Guarino, who didn't find any text messages, but the feds found like, I don't know how many, I didn't get the number, but it's like tens of thousands of messages that the feds have, and some crazy stuff that we've seen in those texts. I mean, it's just it's disgusting. Like, to read it is it's tough to read.
Yeah, I've only been able to read a little part of it just because I've been like bombarded from every angle. But I want to say one thing, that the Massachusetts State Police has that information because they got it off Sanders' devices. So it was Garino not finding it on Mathew's phone. And they had, I don't know what else the FBI came up with beyond what Massachusetts State Police has, but that makes you wonder why they never charged Mathew. That's the question that I want answered. Why? From Massachusetts.
Yeah, even with just like rape, the statutory rape thing, or something like that. I mean, even if you think you couldn't have enough evidence for murder, but it seems like you have way enough evidence for the murder charge. I mean, why didn't they? That's the question, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I spoke to Fanning, and he flat out told me she killed herself. And I said, no, she didn't. I don't believe she killed herself. And him and I went back and forth for like 45 minutes. And, he was the lead lieutenant supervisor on the case. Whenever it came to especially dealing with the Farwells or Divine, he was always in part of the questioning. And he told me, I said, Mathew was a detective. He would have known how to cover up the scene. And his exact words to me, oh, he wasn't a real detective. He wouldn't have known what to do. And I said, yes, he would have.
Now, this Fanning guy, the
Yes.
Mass State Police detective, the head detective in this case, he was a former Stoughton police officer. Do you think he had any friendship or connection with the Farwell brothers or Divine?
He worked there when Divine was working there. So he worked in the early 2000s. He was working there when the Farwell brothers were going through the program for the Stoughton Explorers. I've gotten other information that I'm not ready to put out because I haven't verified it yet, but there might be another connection to them too. And so it's just like Proctor. Why was he on this case? He had a connection to that police department. He should have recused himself.
Rob, what do you think about it?
Yeah, it's one of those things, like, you have any connection to a case that you have to recuse yourself. I mean, it's so different in smaller departments. So one, the number of people there's not anyone in the police department in Stanton that's not going to have connections to him. And we saw that when someone called about a couple weeks before he killed her, saying that there was this detective and probably gave the name. It got back to him. There's no way it's not going to do it. And then the culture of the blue line. And I'm like, I get tired of it in that, like, you'll look on LinkedIn and there's all kinds of great stories about what cops are doing. And all the cops on my LinkedIn and all the police and everything, like, these are the stories that should be coming out there. And I agree. But when these stories come out there, you got to be just as much of an advocate for, wait a second, are you kidding me? Suicide with all these things. Like, I remember last night listening to Ashley go through all the indicators why this wasn't a suicide. Clothes in the dryer and making the reservation for the pictures of the baby picture, all this other things that tell you that there's something that's not adding up to suicide. And then for them to just ignore it that way, and then to put a detective that has connections to it. Like, so, again, I come from the FBI, and there's a different culture with it. I remember Robert Hansen, the spy.
Yes.
So I'm at the hostage rescue team at Quantico, and I'm walking up to our helicopters up there, and they just put it out on the national news that they arrested him. And one of the pilots from HRT is like, oh my God, that's my wife. His wife was walking him out. She was one of the lead case agents for 2 years. And her husband did not know what case she was working, because that's just the culture of you know,
Secrecy.
where you have to, you know, you can't talk about it.
Yeah,
So
who needs to
again,
know?
even if it went into their internal affairs, it got back to them. And that's the problem with smaller departments, and it's smaller with the culture of certain areas. And I think that area around Boston, same thing. You have a culture of how things are done. And we talked last time about young cops coming in, and they're just told, like, you don't cross the thin blue line, you don't do this, you let things go. And it's little things at first, and it adds up to where that culture is just prominent, and you don't do that. And it's unfortunate because as we again, it started an Explorer program to teach, you know, teenagers the good things about police officers, and then they start grooming them for, you know, sexual assault. And you know, again, it went back, and the U.S. attorney talked about it too. That the sex started when she was 15, he was 27. I guarantee, at times the next couple of years, people knew about it, people suspected it, people, you know, within the police department, and it's just like, how can you look at that, and some of them have children themselves, and say that that's something that we're not going to talk about. I don't get it. I really don't.
Yeah, not recognize it. That's a real, like, that's just not some of the other stuff that maybe they let slide. It's this is a lot different when you're talking about children.
It is a slippery slope, though. Like I said, it comes up. I always equate it to Congress too. Like, you know, like when they come in with all these ideas, and they're not going to get voted for it. But if they vote for this one, which is a piece of junk, then that congressman will vote to the other one, and it starts down this road where their integrity of what they really want to get further starts going down, and then it's just it comes into I think you know, hey, you do this for me, I do this for you, and it's nothing about integrity. So with the police officers, I think when they're young and older cops are doing other things, and you look at it, can be from many different things, it just starts building up this culture, and I think, again, it depends on the department, and then how the leaders are doing it and stuff, and you start to see change. But it's a big Titanic. Like, when you're talking about steering a ship, even in the FBI, before 9/11, there was a crime. We looked at it. We found the evidence, and, you know, we brought it to U.S. Attorney's Office to prosecute. And then 9/11 happened. I remember Director Mueller came in, and he said, our first priority is to prevent a terrorist attack. And we had agents saying, that's a fad, that'll go away. That's not what we do. And you kind of look at it and say, wait a second, like, 9/11 was a huge event. And if you can't understand that the culture of preventing a terrorist act, as opposed to just investigating it, getting evidence, but that was the old agents. And until they left the Bureau, and you had a number of years before newer agents were coming in that understood it, I think we've overgone some things. But that's the nature of a ship like that. You steer it, and then you kind of oversteer.
How many years do you think it takes to change the culture like that? Like, with that type of thing with the FBI or smaller police force, whether it's in Canton or the Mass State Police, how many years do you think it would take to change the culture? How did it work in the FBI?
Well, the FBI, because there's so many, like, there's over 10,000 agents, and then, you know, there's over 20,000 employees with intel analysts and everyone else, and it takes a bit. And each office is different. Each office has its own culture. Like, New York always thinks they're the only FBI, you know, office in the Bureau, and all their cases are super important over everyone else's, and that's just the New York culture, and you can deal with it and stuff like that. And some of it, they have a point. But that Boston, I think, has a lot of culture from back in the Whitey Bulger days, which was really dangerous. I mean, that was, again, something that made me almost physically sick when you really looked at how that went down. To offices that are smaller, that get newer agents in there, and newer people, when their numbers are different, and the older agents aren't as many. I think those offices can change over quick. But when you got offices that have a lot of older agents, so when you look at a police department, I think part of it is, how's the turnover? Are those guys staying there all the time? Are they really going out? And then how is their chief and their deputy chief? Are they part of the old school? If they are, then I don't think it's going to change for a while. But you look at some of the movies out there and stuff like that, like Training Day and all these other ones, and I think a lot of people thought those were, well, the people that were involved in them didn't find them hard to believe. But I think some of the other public did, and you have to understand, when someone comes into law enforcement and has that bad culture in it, it can get really bad. It can get really bad. But they'll justify it by like a little thing, and I think a lot of the movies talk about it. It's like they get the new guy on the special ops team, and you have a lot of the problems with the special units because it's a click within a click, and this is the way we do it. And you got to this unit, and then all of a sudden you start finding out they're doing other things with that, and it took years to get there, and they're very well respected, but then you start seeing the inside thing. I think it's tough too.
Excellent. What do you think is next? Like, in terms of, it seemed like, I'll ask Missy this first, but it seemed like there may be more heads to roll, even beyond Mathew Farwell, related to the Cinder Birchmore. Do you think that's true, or do you think that it will just stick to Mathew Farwell?
I mean, if they got to figure out, I mean, I'm sure they already know by now, but I'm sure they want to figure out, was it just these three men? Was it, or technically four, that the Army recruiter? Was it more of a network type deal situation? I mean, it goes into trafficking. I personally believe Sandra was trafficked. If you look at some of the stuff that was done to her with these men, it depends on what avenue they're going for, but it also looks like they're going for public corruption too, because like these three officers, they were, and also the cover up. Why, we already know that they're looking into Michael Morrissey's office in the Karen Reed, how the Karen Reed investigation was conducted. They got to be looking at that too. I mean, why was this man still on the street to hurt other people? Why are the other two still on the street? And I'm not meaning the FBI now. I'm talking about, Morrissey and the Massachusetts State Police. Lord only knows what they were up to in the last 3 years. Who else did they hurt? And what other children were hurt just like Sandra? Obviously, I hope nobody else was murdered, but I believe that there were other children probably hurt. I don't know to what extent, but there are other kids that that were groomed. There is a girl who is in the internal report that was groomed. I personally believe that there are probably other children out there.
Yeah, I think you're going to start seeing some with the Explorer program. When things like this happen, when people start seeing the accountability come in, they're more willing then to go to the FBI, because they see the FBI is the power in this that held integrity. So they're going to start getting more witnesses. But what they're doing now is going through these text messages. And I did the red eye back from Salt Lake City last night, so I haven't got into all the texts that are out there. But I've been in cases when you start looking at texts that people don't think anyone's going to look at. It just gets so enormous of who knows what and who's talking to what, and who's saying things. And it may be connections that they don't even know, but it's other police officers that were talking about this because somehow they got tied to it, and we got the subpoenas for those records. And then you can start seeing who knew, who was talking about it, and then you go down other leads, and then you're looking at people that weren't as big of players in it, that when you go to them and you start looking at charging them, as the old crime goes, you start saying, "How well, I need to get a deal." So then you start negotiating for a plea deal, and you start looking, then getting witnesses that were involved in it, and then you start going down. Like, so the branches that come off something like this are just incredible. And then you're going to start looking at okay, who wasn't involved in it, but who was covering it up, who's actively, whose emails are out there, and a lot of them can be coming from the DA's office and looking at why decisions were made not to do certain things, and then you can start coming out. And that's what's the FBI is involved. But it wasn't murder that the FBI charged; it was murder of a victim or witness, which is a federal case, and that's what I explained on Ashley's show. Is the FBI doesn't just investigate murders. Now, if murder is part of a RICO conspiracy or something like that, or if you murder a federal government official, that we have codes for. But this one was the murder of a witness and victim, and she was a victim of sexual assault and probably a witness in some of the public corruption things that they were looking at. That she was murdered. They probably have texts in or conversations in some type of electronic form where he's discussing something like she's got to shut up, I'm going to get in trouble. And right there, then you have the tie back to why he killed her. And that's where, that charge can come from. But once you start bringing other people involved and they're looking at serious time, they're going to start pleading and they're going to start saying, okay, let me tell you about this. And then you're going to start hearing stories that you didn't even know about, and tying other people into it. So I think it's going to be fairly large. This one, because I think what Missy was doing with all the attention, this was the main one. It was probably one of the easier ones on top of some of the other more complex charges that are going to come out, that they had to take him first. And it was, it was done in a way, like I said, he was, I got asked why did they do it in a parking lot in his dump truck? Well, as a police officer, if he has a bunch of firearms at his house, and you're going to go do a raid there, do you really want him next to that? So if he goes to work and he's not armed type of thing, and you can arrange certain things, he's not expecting it, that may have been the safer option for them, because that's what the FBI was looking at. What's the safest option to arrest him, safest to the public, safest to him? And they determined that situation was right. And I've been involved in when you arrest police officers actually in marked cars in uniform, that are escorting drugs. And that's really a crazy one, is in the middle of Miami, where you're pulling over an actual marked vehicle with black Suburbans and SWAT gear. And that can get crazy. But I think this was the headline one. And I think that you're going to start seeing some of the other ones that we heard about. And then I think you're going to start seeing people in those cases that you didn't even know about, because that's what's going to start coming out of these.
That might be very wild.
I have a suspicion why they moved when they did. I know it's probably been in the works for a little while, but the judge in the civil trial just awarded them all, they told the attorney general to turn over a lot of discovery. So I have a feeling that they wanted to scoop him up before this discovery was gotten, just to get that on the books before they had, the discovery of it. Because I'm not, Rob, you could probably answer better how long it would take to get a warrant for him. But that came down Tuesday and they went after him on Wednesday. So I don't know if
they probably had the warrant ready. Like, it's one thing that you're looking at timing. You write, the case agent's writing the warrants, going through the FBI legal process. They're like, okay, we're here. And then you start you can hold on to it until the fact that you have something that triggers it. And it could be like everything from, arresting spies, when you have the stuff ready, and then you all of a sudden hear something that triggers that they might be into it and going to flee, to something like this. Like, well, this is about to happen. We need to get him in custody. So you can actually, this one, that you could write the warrant very quickly, go into the judge in the middle of the night at his home. Agents do that all the time. Bring it in, get a judge to sign it at his house even. So this one was probably in the queue. And then something triggered it. And it could have been something like that, where like, we got to look at this. And we know his early morning schedule is going to be this. So let's go ahead and knock it off. But they've been probably talking about it for a while.
Yeah. Because like I said, the judge on Tuesday, that came out on the 27th. that the judge told the attorney general to turn over a bunch of discovery in the civil trial. So they weren't going to get everything, but they were going to get probably a little bit more than the FBI wanted. You know, oops, sorry. Turn my
Yeah, and I think, you know, one of the questions last night was like, you know, was he expecting it? As much as he was probably expecting it, because I think he could start feeling, you know, I like to equate it, the noose coming tighter and tighter and tighter on him. But it's still a surprise because you think probably he got out of bed and he started doing this, probably didn't see it in the, you know, the parking lot type of thing. So you still want to surprise him, even though they know it's coming, surprising him in the manner you do it. He probably thought they arrested him at the house when he woke up. So it was one of those like, oh, he got out of the house, got in his work truck, and, you know, he's good for the day. And then it comes in. But I do really like to do arrests like this that, you know, when you know about the case, you know how bad it was, that you get to put handcuffs on guys like that. It's just very, it's satisfying though. You know, it's like a SWAT guy is doing it, and he had no involvement in the case and stuff. But I think when he puts those cuffs on, he really, no matter if he wasn't involved in the case, he knows about it, and he just feels that, you know, justice is served to a point. Like we've arrested guys 20 years after they do a murder. They escape the U.S. and they're Philippines, and we find them, and we go over and arrest them. Those are some of the best ones because the guy totally thought he's getting away with it, and 20 years later, you're like, yeah, nope. The long arm of the law, and you know, justice serving him. So I'm sure they had the whole thing because he was in a dump truck, right, with a bunch of gravel.
Yeah.
Yep. So that dump truck can be used as a weapon too. So I'm sure they had the SWAT armored vehicle somehow cut him off to stop him and get out. And you know, at that point he knew it was done. But it's one of those. Probably the whole ride down, he was you know, kind of in shock that it actually happened. Because even if he's expecting it, the guys in the car, like, you know, they're just in like, I can't believe this. I can't believe this. Like, you knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know he probably didn't expect it that day because his son was in the truck, but I think he knew it was coming soon.
Yeah. Now Busy, you brought up the Attorney General, which I wanted to talk about the state because I think the feds, I think Levy actually said, it seems like they're almost encouraging them. Like you can file state charges too.
Yeah.
What do you think the state should do at this point, Missy, about this?
They should charge him also. You know, it for what they did, all three of these men need to be charged. And if the other two men, I knew about what was going on, what he was planning, they need to be charged for, you know, conspiracy. But for the abuse that they did to Sandra, they definitely need to be charged. I obviously haven't seen those text messages between the three men, but I can probably take a guess that they didn't want Sandra talking about them either. And I'm not saying that they were in on this, but, you know, they definitely didn't want her talking, you know, because she had stuff on them too.
Hey, Mike. One thing I'm seeing in some of the messaging, and Missy brought it up, that his son was in the vehicle, and that's not what the SWAT team wants. Because some people are like, oh, it's safer. Like, you don't want a child involved at all. So it was probably that they'd gone to a point, something triggered that, hey, we got to make this arrest now, and they definitely weren't wanting that. But it is what it is when you say, hey, this is when we're going to do it, and it happens, and then you take it into account. But yeah, they definitely don't want that involved. I don't think it's safer for anyone, and you don't never want a child involved in that. And personally, like you don't even want, you know, people's children to see stuff like that because it affects them down the road for years and years, and you know, so it's nothing that the FBI wanted. It just was a circumstance that happened.
It worked out too. Like there was nothing went wrong in it. So thank God they got, you know, it worked out. Let's talking about the state, Rob. Do you think the state should file some charges? Do you think?
Oh, they will. They're going to file regular like murder charges. So again, and I don't worry as much because the pressure for them to not drop anything is out there. So the FBI, everything they're getting, they're sharing with they specifically mentioned the state attorney general, the Norfolk DA, and the Massachusetts State Police. So, but the pressure's on them, like because they know, well, the FBI is giving to us. They have this, and it's one of those things that's coming out. There's going to be a lot of pressure for them to do the right thing, to take the evidence that they're given to do state charges. So there's going to be a ton of state charges too, and I think they're just going to figure out who is going to do what, and court-wise, who's going to sit on what ones. But what is out there is it's a federal death penalty. Not too many federal death penalties get enacted, but it is out there. So it is one of those things that you can hold over someone's head. So killing a witness or a victim has a death penalty out there. Long process to even go through it, but it's a nice nice hammer at the end of things.
Yeah. Now the governor hasn't really done much on the Karen Reed or the Cinder Birchmore situation or any of like the police scandals that have been ongoing. The RMV thing. There's been a lot of police scandals. What do you think the governor should be doing?
For me, I think it's a catch-22 because the governor shouldn't be sticking her fingers in cases. That's not the governor's job. She's supposed to govern the state, but also she is the head of, the state police run under her. So that is something that does fall under her purview. She needs to clean up what's been going on with the state police. Because how many state police have been arrested this year? How many scandals have they had this year? How many of them have been under investigation? So that's under her purview. So she needs to work on that, I think.
Yeah, I keep thinking of
I hope she does it. I hope she does it without making it political. Like she needs to, again, state police and everything is under her. She needs to have an internal investigation. But let's hope it's not political. Let's hope that they just, not that I don't think any politician doesn't do anything that's not political in some means, but that she does the right thing during the internal investigation, making sure that this case is being given the priorities and the resources it needs, and that no one can squirm out of doing the right thing. But all the other investigations out there, she needs to really, stay on top of and make sure they're done right. And they're not, again, who's going to come in? And I think, was the city of Canton is having a review of the police department, an outside review.
Police audit.
Yeah. Well, okay. Who's doing it? That makes a big difference. So hopefully they go out nationwide search for someone to come in and do the right audit.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the citizens are worried about, and try to get as many applicants for that as they can, because they are doing our request for a proposal right now. I think it's like $100,000 budget. But I was thinking the state police and the governor should be doing something similar, like almost like a commission or something to look into mass state police corruption. So like what are the problems? How do we fix it? Type of, just like we try to, like when the government tries to cure cancer, they bring together a blue ribbon commission type thing.
Yeah.
I feel like we should be doing something like that in the state with our law enforcement. Is that possible, or am I just like doing a pipe dream? I'll start with Rob because he's got the most law enforcement experience here.
I think so. I think at the governor's level, a commission to look at that. Again, I hope it doesn't turn political, because I think on the national level, that's what Congress is supposed to do. And then it turns political. Like you hear they get the review of the Trump assassination attempt, and like each person gets their 5 minutes, and half of it is them just touting to their their constituents about this and their conspiracy things, and they ask one question, that's all political for them they know they're on TV. So hopefully that they set up a commission that actually is going to take a hard look at it, and it's not people trying to then advance their own political agendas within finding, the corruption within the police department. So that's where I always have that twofold thing. I get it. Congress is supposed to do stuff, and then they turn it political, and you're like, oh, you listen to it, and you're like, this is all their talking points about everything else they're getting out on national TV, and then they ask one silly question at the end, and you're like, that's not doing anything. So hopefully that commission is actually a commission of both. You have to have law enforcement in there because of just the understanding of it, but you have to have people outside of it. Like I always say, like you get your best solutions when you do like a cross-functional team to look at things. And in this, I think you really have to have people outside law enforcement so that you don't have that it's just a natural bias. Like I admit I have a natural bias too. I spent 26 years in law enforcement and in the Marines before that. I have a bias on how I look at things based on how I came through the system. But you have to have people outside that to say, wait a second, that's BS. That's just a police officer saying this, and this. I don't see it that way because I'm a citizen and I've been harassed in this way and whatever. So you really have to have outside influences. You have to have inside knowledge on things for the commission to work right. But I hope they do it. It's really needed, and it's always needed. And the Bureau just took a hit on, the doctor that was looking at the gymnast at a horrible case. Like I just get sick on it, but we dropped the ball, and you have to admit it, and then you have to go back and retrain what went wrong. And the attorney, the investigator office in IG looked at it and still found issues with it. So the Bureau really has to make that correction. You got to look at it and say, what did we do wrong? Why did we do it? What was because some of it's not bad intent. It's either bad training or it's a bureaucracy. It's just the way that the Bureau or police department works that doesn't allow certain things that you then have to say, well, we need to knock down this process so that the truth comes out easier. People can do things easier. So some of it's process, some of it's people, some of it's culture, and you really have to strip that all away to make it right.
Excellent. You are a reformer on this stuff. I could tell, Rob, in a lot of respects. It's and not like radical, just like common sense. Like,
it's funny because I didn't have I didn't have as much investigative experience as the Bureau as some case agents say case agents for 20 years. And I was on the HRT, and I did some crazy cases overseas and stuff like that. But I was always one of the ones that common sense, stop with the BS. I remember I met a guy, I won't use his name, but he was a unit chief up at headquarters. And I didn't like to go to headquarters a lot, but I'd have to go up there sometimes. So we're at a happy hour after a conference. And I met him, and I saw his name on tons of emails going back and forth as we were doing stuff. And I said, hey, I'm Rob D'Amico. He goes, oh, your first name's Rob? And I kind of looked at him. He goes, I always thought your first name was effing. Like, I won't say the word effing D'Amico, because I never heard effing without, your last name without effing in front of it. Because I made people mad because I held them to that standard of just do the right thing. Don't give me BS. And I think that's coming out now. As you see it, because I start looking at it and say, well, why are we still, as I talked about earlier, why aren't we totally upset as law enforcement when we start seeing something within our own system? Why is that not, why do we have this code blue? I get it. Police officers do some amazing things. Like I said, I look on LinkedIn, and this cop's diving into the water because this kid with autism had happened in the water. He's stripping his vest off, diving in and getting it. And then you see all the law enforcement saying, these are the stories that need to come out. Absolutely. But these stories also need to come out, and you need to be just as upset as you are happy on the good ones when people do things wrong. And then I think that will start the culture of change. You got to show the good and the bad.
Absolutely.
That's
It's
the only
funny
way
too.
the culture is going to change is if it comes partly from law enforcement. They have to be willing to change and work with the public, because we can't fix, the public can't fix it if they're not willing to work with us. So I mean,
it is true, but I think this in the Karen Reed case really has shown a light on things and what can be done from like what you've done, Missy, like the ground roots. It has to be both. Like you said, it can be this, but this only takes it so far. But when you get the police officers and the law enforcement to look at it and not just say, oh, they don't know what we go through. Like, well, you signed up for it. Like, again, I never fault people for not going overseas for all the like things like that. Like, hey, I like to get thanked for it, but I signed up for it. This is what I intended to do. So I don't always want to say, well, I'm doing this for you. Well, no, like this is my personality. You shouldn't look at it like, they have to be, it's tough. It's just like, oh, well, we go out and we're the thin blue line between you and crime. Yes. But when you become the crime, you're even worse than the common criminal. Like a common criminal is not pretending to be anything else. He's just, and it's worse. But don't sit there and say, oh, because I do this, I deserve special treatment. No, you signed up for this, and it's dangerous, and you do lots of dangerous things. You do a lot of great things, but that does not give you the right to hurt the people you're supposed to protect. It just comes down to that.
It's interesting as we're starting to hear from law enforcement, especially like a guy like Sean McDonough. He's a former DEA agent who has a show himself, and he's hearing from a lot of former law enforcement like I am, but he's also hearing from like current law enforcement, and guys are giving him info, but you could tell they still don't want to rock the boat too much. They don't want their name out there. And it's, I think that it's helpful that they're doing that, but it's always like a line. There's like people, even the ones who have the best interests, they still have to protect themselves because they know there is that thin blue line.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's good to hear, though, that he's getting it from current guys, because there's so many good guys out there that want the right thing to happen that they don't have. Like we talked about, witnesses now coming forth because at least these guys are starting to be held accountable. You're going to start getting more victims willing to, and again, it's just like the church scandal that went down. When they saw that people were being held accountable, more people came forward. And I think that's the same even in police lines now that before, like, you just didn't do it. You didn't even talk to anyone about it. So that it's a little bit at a time. So now that you're starting to have active law enforcement saying these things and starting to get start to be understood as this is what needs to happen, it's going to be slow, but I think we're going through that period where it's starting to change, and it's a monumental change, and it's a little thing that sets the course on it that I think we're starting to look at.
I apologize. I just had to handle something. That's what I was doing. I'm not trying to be rude on my phone.
Oh, you're fine. I didn't even notice.
Yeah, I had to take care of something.
I'm probably doing more stuff.
And someone says, like, someone jumped on, was watching it, and I'm like answering texts. I'm like, I still have a business to run too, so sometimes you got to answer it.
Yeah.
Tell me about it. Sometimes
I got a phone call and I'm like, I texted the person, I'm on a YouTube show. They were like, oh, sorry, I just need you to do this. I'm like, okay, I'll check it out. So I'm like,
well, that's what's good about these podcasts. We can look down real quick and answer something while someone else is talking.
Definitely. You can't. I do that all the time myself. It's just, sometimes it's like this, waving to my girlfriend when she comes in too. That's the other one. But or talking about my dogs. I don't have any dogs in the room tonight. I'm solo, which is good. We had a question that came in from Missy. they wanted to know, this is reality check. She wanted to know how you're doing and how Sandra's aunt is doing after yesterday. How are you processing it?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm like, I've been smiling a lot the last few days. My cheeks hurt. But I also feel weird smiling because it feels weird to be happy about this situation, because I would rather Sandra be here and me not have to, be out there talking. I love talking in your mic, but I would love not to have to go on shows to spread her word of her case. From the family that I've spoken to, same thing. They're a roller coaster of emotions. They're, happy that this man is off the streets. They're happy this man has been charged. They have questions. Why wasn't he charged before? What was the Massachusetts State Police up to? And, they also realize it's going to be a long road ahead. It doesn't happen overnight. So there's, it's going to be the all pre-trial motions and, everything that's been going on with, the Karen Reed case. Everybody got a, good look into how the court systems do work. And so this is I described it the other day was, actually it was to a lieutenant at the Stoughton PD. I said, he said, congratulations. It's about time. And I said, this is the first step. That was only practice. We were on the practice field. So now we're in the big leagues and we're not quite on the field yet. We've just taken the big, it's like, we have a lot of work still to do. So it's like, yes, celebrate for today, but you know what? We got to get back to work tomorrow.
Absolutely. When is the next court date? Do you know, for a federal court?
I think something said September 11th, but I'm not sure. I have to find out.
To September. Okay.
Yeah, I believe he's going back to court on I think they said 11th, but I'm not 100% sure yet. I got to look into it.
I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of people outside of federal court for that, or inside too. I mean, I don't think there's probably plenty of room in there for people to sit in, right?
Yeah, I would assume so. But so people know, this trial will be very different from the Karen Reed trial. Federal trials are not televised, so you will not see it on TV. So you'll have to see what reporters will put out there. That's all you'll get.
Or go yourself. That's the other option too for people. So there's going to be a need too. If you need a job, you could, because I would love to cover that and go in there and write it up every day, but I don't know if I can because I got the other business going. But I think that's a good, if someone wants to provide that service, show up every day, I think you'll find a lot of people that would be interested in supporting you. Let's put it that way.
I ask
especially if you do it like, with in the best way, not like some of these other creatures that make up stuff.
Yeah. I ask if you get front in line, hold me a seat, because I would love to be in there a few days here and there.
I have a feeling there'll be plenty of room in federal court. We'll see. It seems like it's a pretty big court.
It's definitely
federal courts runs so much different though. Like, because I'll look at the state ones, I'm like, oh my God, that would never happen in federal court. Like there's no playground in federal court. They don't put up with stuff. So it's a totally different show. And I think attorneys act differently because they also know it's not televised. Like some of the stuff that you're seeing, like, because they understand like this is on TV, they do things differently. In federal court, that stuff doesn't put up. Judges don't put up with it. But also because it's not televised, you don't have the same, I think, characters in court that state court has.
I think that might apply to the judges too. In some cases, some of these judges get like different when the cameras are on.
I think so. It's just a natural thing that happens. It's a different process. And again, same thing with federal courts, that they don't get elected into that whole thing. And once they're in, they're in, so to speak. So there's pros and cons in both, actually.
Definitely. Just different. It's just a different vibe over there. I had a friend who was it's funny. I used to be a financial advisor. So I met a lot of people through that. And I had a friend over there at the federal court. I wonder if they're still there. I should probably try to look them up. Well, then we'll all get in. We'll be all good, Biz. But I'm just wondering. Actually, what was that note I had? Oh, here it is. McNamara, the chief of police of Stoughton. I got to watch this thing because I guess there was a press conference, but I noticed a lot of comments saying that she took credit for the arrest of Mathew Farwell. What do you think about her at this point, the chief of police? I mean, she doesn't seem to be as horrible as I'll say as Helena Rafferty, let's put it that way, from Canton, who has done awful PR for her police force in the way that she's spoken and mostly not spoken. This chief of police from Stoughton seems a little more savvy. She seems to say some of the right things, but people still question her sincerity and whether she really means it. What do you think about her, Missy? And just kind of, I don't know if you saw the press conference she gave yesterday.
Yeah, I did see it. I'm like down the fence. I'm like in the middle of the fence for her. Like, I think they did a really good job with the internal investigation. I just personally think they didn't go far enough. And why weren't all the explorers that went through the program questioned? That's questions I have. Also, this was going on underneath her nose. She was the chief when this, while some of this, I mean, obviously the early on abuse wasn't under her nose. She wasn't the chief then, but the last few years she's been the chief, and so some of it was going on down under her nose. I think some of it's sincere. No police chief wants their police department to be like, the laugh of the, Massachusetts, and to be, Stoughton's have so many problems anyway. Over the years, there's been so much corruption in that police department. So, but I think she wants to clean up the department. I think she wants the department to get better, but I don't know. I like I said, I have mixed feelings about her, but I feel like that she did do the right thing and turn over whatever she could. When the feds came and said, we want everything you have, she gave it to them. She wasn't holding anything back. And, also Sandra's death didn't take place in her jurisdiction, took place in Helena Rafferty's jurisdiction. And like they've said, they don't charge the abuse. That's the Massachusetts states. They're supposed to do that. So they turned over what they learned. Their whole case got turned over to the Massachusetts State Police. And it's like, what did they do with it? So like I said, I feel it's a mixed feeling about her. I think some of it's trying to save face too, but I'm mixed. I have a mixed feeling about it.
I think that's fair. I think that's very reasonable.
I think that's dead on. I have mixed feelings about it too. She's saying the right things now, but then again, this happened. Some of it happened under watch. And then you said, she gave all the, information. Well, yeah, because she has to. Like when the feds come in, and so it's one of those things that prior military experience. Like, you're the commanding officer. Everything that happens is on you, and as that's the burden of command. And frankly, it happened under her. Did she do enough to change it? Obviously not. Now she's going that route, but is it just because she's being forced to? So I have mixed feelings too. I would have to know what she tried before. Did she hit that thin blue line under her, and was trying to do it, and then this was her opportunity to do the right thing when she was trying to before, or did she go along with that, and now that like the tidal wave is coming, she's like, oh yeah, I'm out here doing it. So I don't know enough to make that. I have mixed feelings too, but I also come from the military where the commanding officer has the burden that everything under you is your responsibility. And it's one of those things that I go back and forth. So I had mixed feelings too. And I think that is a great way to do it. She's doing the right thing now, but did she do enough before? Did she really, again, if she was trying to turn the culture and do the right thing, and this was the way that she could actually get what she was trying, great. Then I support it. But if she really didn't do it, and people say, well, she tried, but she couldn't. Well, you're the chief, but then again, is the police unionized? How easy is it to fire somebody? And you go all through all those other things come into play.
And to go with that, Mathew Farwell was the head of the patrolman, like in
Union?
Association.
Union. I don't know if he was still that, but I know during COVID he was. So he's had to still have been when this went down. So he was the head of the patrolmen's union. So, and she already had issues with him from dealing with him with the COVID situation. So
it's funny that certain areas understand, like unions in the Northeast are so different. I was out in Salt Lake City, just south of it, and I was talking to one of the guys that we were working with, and he owns this big welding thing. And I was telling him, growing up, I worked as a kid in a union shop, but we couldn't do certain things. Like if I drove a delivery of ductwork to a union job, if I unloaded any of that ductwork on that site, they would crush it all and make new ones because the non-union guys took it off the truck.
Yep.
And the guys look at me, it's like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no, that's unions.
I worked for Teamsters through college. I know all about it.
Yeah. So some people don't get it. And unions are tough. They were needed at a time, like when you look at the history of them, but now you look at it and it's a bit different. But police unions are very strong. And if he was a president, I didn't realize he was a president of the police. Like,
I didn't either.
That's crazy too, because that alone gives you power. It just doesn't mean you're a detective. You're head of the union. There's a bunch of probably overtime jobs that you get handed out through certain things, and the good ones go to it. Yeah. So, but again, for her as a chief, you have to look at what she tried before. If you're really going to cast it that way, there's another separate side of it. She's doing the right thing now, but is she doing the right thing because everything that Missy's done and the federal investigation's done to look at it and say, well, I better jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta shout out the Case podcast too. That Kirk Minahan, Barstool Sports, they did a great job too. They deserve a lot of accolades for that. They knocked on doors, even though I don't really like Dave Cullinane. He knocked on a lot of doors. He did a good job on that.
Yeah,
they all did.
When people want to know about Sanders' case, we always send them to the Case podcast. It's an easy way for people to consume what happened before yesterday,
We have a question for Rob. They want to know, does the DOJ is it possible the DOJ is looking at crossover on Karen Reed, Turtle Boy, or this other Justin Root case?
So I think the cases are more, things were open because people came forward and made complaints, and then they started looking down different avenues. I think there's some crossover, but I don't think it's as much as people think. Because once the FBI gets involved and you're working with the U.S. Attorney's Office, you have to have certain information to actually open a case. So you get something in with this one. But as I talked about, the branches that go down based on what people start telling you and you start looking at text, I think there's going to be crossover because some of the same people were involved. And I think it was someone came up in this case that was tied to the other case, and then they're already looking at certain things there, then they naturally go down something. So I think it's going to be broad. I don't think it's a direct crossover. I think it's just because they sit next to each other, same people involved from the DA's office and the police departments. Like I think the first person on the murder scene was the first person at Karen Reed's.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah,
he wasn't on the scene. He was the first. He was the supervisor called to the scene. They had already found her body. There was patrolmen who found the body, and then he was the supervisor on duty, came to the scene.
Yeah. So I don't think like you're going to find a straight up crossover on that. I think he's personally, I think he came on this and then was told, hey, like probably back off at a point. And the fact that if he did that, and this is just me thinking, it's not anything I have, but if he in fact did that, then I think he's bad in that. Like, do I think when he got there and said, oh my God, like a fellow cop killed her type of thing? Probably not. Probably was going down, and he probably started, I think, everything looking at it like there's a bunch of odd things with this, and then was told to back off. And again, that culture of listening to someone telling them to back off instead of saying, wait a second, no way, this is not right, is probably going to go down. And then when you look at him being the first on the Karen Reed, again, it was one of those things that I think other people were involved that told people, directed them to like, hey, don't worry about it type of thing. Is that chargeable? That's where you get into what's chargeable and what's not. Is it just bad policing to ignore certain things and go with the flow? I think that's going to come out. But all of those are going to lead to, again, when you're looking for evidence, these are just things that are happening. And you start looking for evidence in text messages, and then people start coming forward as witnesses and saying like, oh yeah, that guy's this, and this. That gets into a different role of it.
I have a question for you. Somebody like the officer that we're talking about is Officer Lank. So as a special agent, would that be somebody that you would call in for like a Queen of the Day conversation? Or Queen for a Day, I should say.
Anytime I look at that, I want to know beforehand, how dirty was he? I don't want to give Queen of the Day to someone that I know is super dirty.
Yeah.
So if I think he's just like being told to back off, that's one thing. Say, okay, like I think that's weak moral character. Was he involved in it? So I think that's what a lot of people, the prosecutors, look at it too. Like, we don't want to give that away to someone that we think may have deeper, nastier ties into things going on, or is it just someone that's just acquiescing to higher authorities? He wants to keep his job. He's, all those things that come into it. Those are the people that give Queen of the Day for, saying, okay, look, we don't think you're deeply involved in this, but we think you were told certain things by certain people. Tell us. Because I don't want to give that away to someone that I think's bad, really bad in this case.
And what about Farwell himself? Like, do you think the U.S. attorney would give him anything if he turned in some dirt on other people?
I think it play like he killed a 23-year-old woman pregnant with his child that he'd been sexually assaulting since she was 15. That's a tough one to give anything to. Because who unless someone else, they killed multiple people, like you're looking at the worst. I think you killed a young woman who was pregnant with your child because you groomed her from 15 and sexually assaulted her and raped her since that time, I'm not like I'm
No
not like,
deal.
if
Yeah.
you're giving
Be
me
hard to make a deal.
Charlie
Make a deal with
Manson
the
who killed a whole
devil.
bunch of people, maybe like, but that's like, and you did it as a cop in the Explorer like that's like, I don't want to give that guy anything. I would love to see the federal thing. Like, yeah, you're gonna die. That's good on me. So I had really have, there would have to be something so bad in that case that he can give me that I would give him any break, unless the evidence gets a bit. You got to look at the evidence and how good it is to get him on murder. And if you think you got that, and then you look at I think the only time then you're talking about, well, we'll take the death penalty off if you plead guilty to murder of a victim and you're going to do life without parole. Because the death penalty gets into like that. That's the one thing I can see. Other than that, I don't see you play with him at all. He's
And
the
would you
worst
say
of the worst.
if you, let's say you were going to offer him that deal just to plead guilty, would you say that? But you also have to tell us like, did the DOJ say that? Like, we'll give you
yeah,
a
if you're
deal.
gonna plead,
We'll take
you
the
have
death
to.
penalty off the table, but you have to tell us about everybody else that helped you illegally,
including your brother.
Yes, you have to do that because, and if you agree to that, and then we find out you didn't, then we can still charge you and take the plea agreement away. So that's one of those things saying like when you sign that document, you're going to say you're agreeing to this, this, and this, and you're going to tell us everything. If you don't tell us something, we find it in the text. And we, before we do this, we know a lot. So you're going to be testing him in that. Does he really come out and say the things that you know about from all the text messages going back? And if he agrees to the plea agreement and signs that, saying he'll cooperate and tell us everything, if he doesn't, you can still prosecute him with everything he said and take the plea agreement away because he violated it. So that's out there too. And like Missy said, his brother's involved. I think some of the evidence points to that again, that she was groomed and passed around to other police officers, and I believe his brother was involved in that. So again, it's one of those things that you want to get. Like, I'll take the death penalty off, and you can tell us one of those people you're going to tell us about is your brother.
Yeah,
that would be something.
His twin brother to boot. It's not just his brother; it's his twin brother.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's it.
So, yeah.
I mean, I think that's his best shot, honestly, because I don't think a lot of people would have much problem convicting him for death. Like, it just,
No, when it comes out again, the whole years and years of grooming, and I think what you're going to probably see, like with Proctor, on the text messages that come out. Now they may only come out in trial. You're not going to get a bunch leaked in that, but that's one of the things that you're going to talk about. Like, if you're on trial and you have all these text messages that just show what a just scum of the earth he is, talking to his buddies about her, God knows how far back they go. That's one of the things that's going to be out there.
So I would put it out to the chat right now. If you have any questions, I know a lot of you have questions at times that I probably missed because there's so many comments coming through. If you have a question, put it up now. It's be a good time for it. I'll go to Missy. Missy, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about in terms of any of this? Because I know you have a lot of information. Is there anything that like you haven't gotten to get out there?
Well, besides what has gone on, just so if anybody's listening who hasn't been on the page, we do have a website, justiceforcinderbirchmore.com. You can get to my Twitter and the Facebook page from there. And please, if you can, join the pages. It helps get our name out there. Use hashtags to if you talk about her. And please, if you can, come to the standouts. We don't do a ton of them, but when we do them, we need them to be impactful. And we found an amazing area to stand for the next one. It's where Canton, Stoughton, and Sharon all meet. Like basically the town, it's like this little corner where all three towns meet, and we're going to do it at that intersection. I don't have the date yet, but if you go to the website, when it pops, you'll be able to see it.
So it's justiceforcinderbirchmore.com.
Yes.
Is it like 4 FOR or the number 4?
FOR.
Okay. Justiceforcinderbirchmore.com.
Yeah.
I'm sure people check that out. Question came in. Bunch of questions coming through. Here's one. How widely known do you think Farwell's crimes were to the CPD, BPD, MSP, Norfolk, DA, etc.?
I don't know. I wonder who knew what was going on. No, obviously not the murder of her, but I'm talking about like the abuse. I would love to know how many other officers knew that she was being abused, or that he was, dating her, I wonder how many other officers know about it. And that's one of the things that the Stoughton report didn't go into either, because they didn't want to take the whole police station down. That's part of it.
Yeah, I think there's probably an inner crew that knew, and then I think the probably word on the police bars was like, "Oh, that dude's a scumbag."
Yeah,
and that's kind of like they don't know exactly. It comes from an inner circle knowing, rumors spreading, and then other guys just say, "Oh, that dude's a scumbag." There's suspicion, what they exactly know, but that gets out to a point, and it's just like that. Unfortunately, yeah, he's a scumbag, but no one's doing anything about it.
yeah.
It's a question. How many cops are proven to have abused her?
4. There's Mathew Farwell, William Farwell, Robert Devine, and Josh Heel, but he wasn't a police officer at the time. He was the Stoughton animal control officer. He went on to be an Abington police officer.
And I will add that it hasn't been proven in a court of law. They've been accused.
Yes.
So we're clear on that. But I mean, It looks pretty irrefutable.
Well, yeah, there was that internal investigation on that, and that's
Exactly.
when they resigned and everything else. So
Yeah, the Stoughton Police Department sure seems like they think something happened.
This information comes from the Stoughton Police Department.
Exactly. So I think we're all good.
And none of them, they've all resigned. None of them, they're not police officers anymore. William Farwell and Robert Devine are going through the post commission at the moment to see whether their license is going to be permanently decertified. And Josh Heel has never gone through, he isn't going through the post commission, so he is able to work as a police officer in the state of Massachusetts. I'm not denying what he did wasn't like being a scumbag, but his crime is lesser than what these guys were doing. He got a sexual favor from her when she was an adult in exchange for a cat. Yes, he's a piece of crap for doing that, but I think they're going to use him as a witness in this case because he had a lot of knowledge about what was going on.
Yeah, he's not the other 3. He's not.
No, I mean he's still a piece of crap. Don't get me wrong, but I suspect he'll be called as a witness because he's the one who told them that they were tracking her. So he has a lot of knowledge from what was going on behind the scenes in Cinder's case.
And that's a guy you talk to about a plea deal. Like you said, she was an adult. What he did was just, like you said, was really bad. It wasn't at the same level. The fact that he has the knowledge that you want to bring in and talk to the inner workings of that conspiracy.
Yeah.
It's somebody that apparently worked with Sandra commenting. Not sure what she's talking about though. What kept what secret? You can hit us up. Post more comments.
My ex-worker.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes, but okay. Can I answer this?
Yeah.
I'm going to try to say it nicely. Sandra was groomed from the age of 12, 13. The FBI said 12 to the day she died at 23. Grooming is basically a form of psychological warfare on a child, where they take the child and warp their mind. They make them keep secrets from their family and everyone around them. And they manipulate, gaslight a child or a person. So basically, Sandra was under their thumb. She did whatever they told her. So because Sandra didn't tell you does not mean it wasn't going on. Sandra keeping secrets is because that's what she was made to do.
Yeah.
That's what grooming is.
So
But also, I'd like to know exactly when that, because she ended up sharing a lot. So again, one person coming out and say, "Oh, she didn't tell." Well, she shared a lot at the end, and that's kind of what brought this on. But as Missy said, the grooming is all about them looking, and the predators target certain individuals because they don't have good adult role models in their life. And then they become those adult role models. And then they say that everything that you want, if you talk about this to anyone else, is going to go away. So again, it is absolutely psychological manipulation, brainwashing, whatever you want to talk about it. And the fact that one person didn't hear something does not mean anything at all, because that's exactly what the predators are trying to prevent. And from the beginning, they start talking about that. If you talk about this outside of anyone else, everything that you get from this relationship from me as a role model is going to go away. And so it's just beyond a doubt if you doubt it because she didn't tell one person something. But that's exactly what the predators are preventing that young person from doing.
And also, I want to add to that, her family did not know. You know, her family knew later on in life that Sandra, they thought she was dating a married cop. They didn't know this man was abusing her from the age of 12. So I'm sorry, people need to understand. If you need to understand what grooming is, you need to understand why she was the way she was. Like Rob just said, there as somebody who's being groomed, you're told that you are not allowed to tell anybody. Yes, Sandra was an oversharer, but she didn't share this little portion of her life to anyone.
Yeah, I mean, and if you read too, or even watch, what Levy said too, that's why he freaked out, because she finally shared it, and it wasn't even Sandra. Sandra shared it to a friend who then told the police. So that's why he freaked out. He went crazy. This guy was so angry about it.
Yeah.
So
because for years he controlled her to a point, and as the FBI says, he lost control. So I think something in those text messages they're seeing let them use that term. He lost control, and he felt like this was going to go downhill, because from the time she was 12 until like 23 to just probably a couple months before that, when she got pregnant, probably was this change in how she looked at it. And he figured out he lost control and got angrier and angrier, especially when she said that she was going to put his name on the birth certificate. I mean, that's a huge thing. And he's got 2 kids, one on the way. Call comes into the police department, and now he wants a key to apartment. When he's in her apartment, and she sees him in there saying, like, why is he looking at this closet? And then it goes to, that's that's where she's, quote, hung from, the prison hanging of herself, which, so again, you look at that whole thing, and then that gets me sick that the police and the ME put on their suicide. I think someone had made a comment about that. Like, well, you need to talk to that medical examiner. Who put pressure on you to go suicide? Like nothing in here based on all these things is pointing to that. And you're supposed to be that independent medical person. And if you don't have the moral character to stand up and say what you know is right, you don't deserve your license either.
I mean, I know people have mixed feelings about the Emmy and John O'Keefe's, who did John O'Keefe's autopsy, but at least she put undetermined on his.
Yeah.
It would have been one thing if she put undetermined, because undetermined, it still leaves a leeway.
Yeah.
But she put suicide, and clearly we all know that it wasn't. Now that's why he was
it goes back to another case that I'm looking at, the one in Philly where what was it, 20 self-inflicted stab wounds, 10 on the back, and they ruled it suicide. Like,
yeah.
So again, these cases need public attention to be like, okay, and then people need to be held accountable. Like you're a medical examiner, and you're going against everything that's this pointing to, and you're saying one thing because you're getting pressured.
Yeah.
I think that needs a hard look too.
Now, this trafficking, you mentioned it earlier. We've mentioned a few times in the previous shows, but Joe Biffle, who's usually trolling, has a very serious question on it. He wants to know more about it. There was also another hypothetical question that said, would you be surprised if an Albert was brought up eventually for human trafficking charges as well? What can you tell us about the human trafficking? Like, what do we really know about that accusation, Missy?
Well, we do know that she was introduced to other men. We do know that. She was introduced to the Army recruiter, and their explanation for it doesn't hold water, because she was already went through the military, and she was she had asthma, and they told her she couldn't be in the military. So their reasoning for him being introduced to her is false. And she was introduced to the animal control officer. I've been told that there might have been another police officer. Partially also, if you remember that Boston Globe article, there was a blurb about how Mathew wanted her to send him photos and video of her having sex with other men. And it was reported that there was another Stoughton police officer that was in the photos, but they didn't say William Farwell, Mathew Farwell, or Robert Devine was that officer. They were named throughout that whole report. So you would have thought that they would have said, Robert Devine's genitals were seen in a photo type deal thing, not, they said a Stoughton police officer. So that, and there's just other things where William Farwell was looking himself up in, I think it's called Segis, repeatedly. And he was also looking Sandra up. And there was no reason for that. He was trying to pay attention to what was going on. I think he was trying to pay attention to see if anything was coming down the pike. So those are some of my reasonings where I think they were trafficking her. I don't know if there was a money exchanged, but the videos were exchanged as like for him to have have of her in videos and stuff like that. I don't know if there was more than that went with that, but reading the report, that's what jumped out to me. William Farwell's portion of the report was trafficking.
I also think some of the videos could be used as blackmail against other police officers too. So again, as that goes into it, obviously he had no caring for her at all, and he could use her to manipulate other police officers that maybe like he wasn't sure of, but if he gets the dirt on them and he has a video of them, says, "Hey, shut your effing mouth," like I got you too. So I think that goes around. But when you look at trafficking and we already mentioned it, the podcast, The Case, they do an entire thing on police explorers, which I did not know. I grew up Roman Catholic and fell away from it because of what happened with the Catholic Church and all the cover up. And I said the same thing. I don't care if you're the one doing it. And then if you're not the one doing it and you find out about it and you move a police officer or a priest to another area and you don't tell them that you're just as culpable as. So I see the same thing with it. I was so shocked that the Police Explorer program had so many nationwide cases of this that it was sickening to me that this is a problem. And we talked about it on the first podcast, so about how I looked at what my kids were doing. I've 4 kids, and I was always suspect of everybody, basically where I came from. And unfortunately, I assumed you were a predator until you proved me different, was almost the way I went about it. But predators put themselves in these positions where they can start grooming, and then they look at the ones that have the most problems that they can separate to the side and then feel safer doing things, and they'll do tests on it. And it may not be like we talked about last time, like, hey, you tell your kids, like, let me know if someone touches your private areas and stuff. That's not how it starts. They compliment them. You know, like, no adult male should be telling a 12-year-old girl she looks pretty, and touching their hair. And they start down these roads, and they're testing the child to see if the child's telling anyone. Like, oh yeah, he touched my hair. He was combing my hair. Like that shouldn't be happening. Yeah. But it's very non-threatening that if the child tells someone, oh, I was just like their hair was a mess, I was just straightening out, I told her she looked pretty. But then now they know that child will tell somebody. So they're going to back away from a bit. It's the one that doesn't tell somebody that then they keep going forward on it. And it is a process. So, and it's positions of authority, unfortunately, and they keep pushing it, and they do things that at first are that they'll have an excuse for until they really vet out that victim is safe to go further with, and unfortunately it's around, and you get into, like, from the FBI, the trafficking goes to wherever the Super Bowl is. The sexual trafficking rises. It's like 1,000%. It's just crazy stuff that goes on that you really have to look past all the things that you think about. And unfortunately, it's not a nice world at times.
Yeah, apparently that happens at the conventions too. The DNC and the RNC. Prostitution spike in those areas.
Yeah, well, you look at, back in, I forget what year it was, when the House pages and stuff like that. Again, it's positions of authority that you never suspect anyone. And they do the same thing. They groom, they separate the ones that they feel safe with, and then they pursue that. And so many of these young people they're in positions where they want to make it somewhere, and this person is the ability to turn that off or turn that on, and they don't say anything. And you look at the Me Too with Hollywood, same thing with actors and everything else, where this producer is so powerful that if you go against him, you never get a job in Hollywood. And that was I did bodyguard work between the Marines and FBI, and I did some stuff out in Hollywood. And there was a very powerful guy out there that was it was so disgusting. And it was known throughout everywhere. and no one said anything because you would never work in the town again. So, and that's where my basis with my children came in, that I was just the most suspecting father out there. But I still, couldn't prevent everything. And one of my children had been sexually assaulted by a boyfriend, and it can happen by a boyfriend, so to speak. So it's one of those things, you can do as much as you can, but it is definitely a huge problem out there.
Got a lot
Sorry
of
to hear
comments coming through. This is a friend of the show, Mass Bay. My friend Chief, he's a veteran. He says, "Hey Mike, Farwell is just like Charles Stewart. The culture of the '80s Boston is alive and well in Canton's Stoughton?" ? Yeah, I guess they both killed their the mother, pregnant mothers, right?
There's a statistic out there that pregnant women, the highest comorbidity for pregnant women is being murdered, not dying in labor. It's being murdered.
My
So-
girlfriend was
I
just
saw that
talking
the other
about that
day and I
last
was in
night.
shock.
Yeah.
I literally was I was like, holy cow, are you kidding? But
Lacey Peterson, there's another one. I mean,
Yep.
it happens a lot.
Yeah. I just shared a clip from that. They talk about that statistic, but I also wanted to put another famous case, because it was like scrolling. It was a profiler who was talking about it, and as she's talking about, different aspects of pregnant women being murdered and things like that, she was talking about that, and I was like, their cases are different because, Lacey was her husband, Sandra was this
Girlfriend.
relationship, but they hold that commonality where, they were murdered by their quote unquote, I hate using these terms when it comes to him, but in Sandra's mind, he was her boyfriend, her significant other. It is a domestic violence case because in Sandra's eyes, that was her boyfriend, which is that's heartbreaking and sad in itself,
It's like an
But
epidemic.
again, she was
Sick.
groomed since 12.
Yeah.
In order to, I'm sure he used that against her. I'm your boyfriend. You don't want to do you can almost see the conversations, how he manipulated that. And then I think what overpowered it was she was pregnant with her child. And I think that is what turned her. She saw it differently because now she was going to be the mother of this baby, and started seeing it a bit differently. And then that, again, what she did caused panic in him, and then him going down that road. Not that there's any excuse on that. He's still a murdering, as I said, scumbag, to get there. But I think the overpowering thing with her was her becoming pregnant changed how her outlook was. And then he realized he has lost control. And then he ended up knowing that in order for him to try to save himself, to kill her.
Yeah. And like, this is all Sandra wanted. She wanted to have a child. Most of her immediate family was gone. The only person left was her aunt Darlene, and her cousin. I mean, she has a lot of cousins and stuff like that, but her mother died, her grandmother died, her other aunt died. So it's like, she thought of it as this was going to be my family, and somebody who will be there to love me, and I can love them. And so she was happy. And I think that's what snapped her. Like you said, it snapped her into, no, I'm not taking this anymore. I'm putting my foot down. I am not getting rid of this child. And he couldn't deal with it.
Yeah. And the fact that
all the work was giving him problems.
And I know all your viewers know this, but the fact that he went there the night before his third child was born, like just unbelievable. drove in a snowstorm, planned this probably for a couple weeks. His actual wife is getting ready to give birth, and he goes over and does this, and then goes to the hospital for his third child being born.
Sick.
It's yeah. It just the symbolism of him holding his baby newborn in the hospital while his other one was he murdered his other one. You know, it's
Yeah, and I think someone asked why the charges were, or the federal charges were only for one, because she was with child, because the federal charge is killing a witness. The unborn baby was not a witness. So I think probably on the state charge, depending on the laws up there, you may see murder for two. But that's why on the federal side, because she was a witness victim that was killed, the baby wasn't. But on the state charge, I think you may see murder of two.
Excellent. I'm glad you explained that.
Yeah.
Because it's like it is confusing sometimes for about federal versus
It is.
state.
And
Federal
again,
just doesn't do straight up murder unless there's crossing state lines, there's fraud, a witness,
RICO,
like
all these
that.
other things that if you do a bank robbery and someone dies, there's a charge in that. But there has to be a federal connection. So they found it appropriately. She was a witness victim. He killed her. Everything else, I think, will be on the state side.
I have a question about that. Now, go to John O'Keefe's case. If the FBI can prove that it was, John got murdered in that house, by them leaving him on the lawn, could they charge the same charges? Because not getting him help, he's a witness of the attack. If they're like it, I know it's a little convoluted, but
I think it's a little bit convoluted. I think I would have to look a bit more into it. And I think when you're looking there, you're looking at color of the law, other police officers. They're looking at public corruption in a different way. But if it leads to the murder, that they would then push it to the state type of thing. What the federal charges are looking at might be a bit different.
Okay.
This one was great because they charged him with a death penalty case. I mean, that's really good.
Yeah.
How likely do you think he'll be convicted to get the death penalty? Like, what do you think the odds are?
That he gets a death penalty?
Yeah.
I think what we talked about, where they'll take the death penalty off in order for him to testify against others. I don't think you're going to see any. I think it's going to still be life without parole. Will be the offer, but death penalty will be off the case for him to testify against others.
That makes
That's
sense.
just a personal thing. I'd love to see him actually brought to the.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense for him. I mean, I think he probably knows he's screwed. There's no way he's going to win this. So,
and life for a sexual predator as a former cop in prison. He may have to do his whole time in solitary, just for his own safety.
And which will
like
even
that's not like
suck
you
even
get
more.
to prison, and like child predators and cops, like that's a bad combination. So have fun.
He's not going to have any fun there, that's for sure. Here's one last question tonight from Dewey. Dewey wants to know about the wife. What do you think the wife might have known?
I don't know. I mean, I've often wondered if she, but see, it's been proven not. I often wondered if she said, you need to take care of her, but not in just telling her to go do what he did, but like she needs to get rid of that.
Get out of our life.
Yeah, type deal thing. But now that I know that it was more pre-planned than it already was, I don't think it was that case. She knew about Sandra. I'm trying to run down how early on she knew about Sandra, but I mean, in the report, it says that his brother told his wife about Cinder, so she did know about the baby. I'm sure she wasn't happy, that she was getting ready to have a child, and she finds out this.
So if you look at him, I think his personality is controlling. That he in fact had the same type of relationship with his wife. That now she's pregnant with her third child, and there's like this oh, he's got this girlfriend. And I'm sure if she knew anything, he painted her as she's the one stalking him. Like again,
Exactly.
it's one of those things. He's a controlling personality, probably a narcissist. Like everything goes back to him. I
Yeah.
feel bad for his wife and their kids,
Oh yeah.
because I think it's going to come out that what he is. But I think he had the same controlling thing and manipulated his wife as he did her. That stuff doesn't go away.
Yeah, I agree with that. I fully agree with that.
A lot of victims here. I imagine his poor kids. That's gonna suck.
Yeah, especially the son that was there.
Yeah. Imagine the child that was born the night before.
Yeah.
Imagine knowing that your
Curse.
dad, if it comes out that your dad killed his girlfriend that was pregnant the night you were before you're born. Okay, like just start the therapy now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Happy birthday to me this year.
How young can you get into therapy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
that whole his whole family is going to need a lot of therapy.
Change your names too, probably.
They're absolutely victims too. It's all on him.
Yeah. And the other two officers. So the devastation that they brought to their families, their friends, their constituents, because they had, they were public officials, their department, their town, the state, it's an embarrassment all around. And just because they had to be pieces of crap, and that's probably the nicest thing I can call them.
But all the people in the police department that knew, that didn't, like, they're part of it too, as we talked about. Even if it's a culture of whatever, we call it moral courage to do the right thing. Again, there's a whole grooming process in the police department about becoming a cop and doing the right thing and the thin blue line. But then again, you can't take that off of the moral courage to do what's right when it's needed.
Especially when
more
it
of
comes
that.
to abusing a child.
It just, it's one of those things. Like I just, like I said, I was in Iraq and Afghanistan a lot, and saw a lot. But when it was, it really hit hard when something happened to a child that was around the age of my children. When I saw it, it was a lot different emotionally. And I can't imagine being in a police department and you have children and seeing this police explorer program grooming. Again, even if they didn't know everything, there had to be leakage of some of the weird stuff going on that you didn't confront somebody, and you had children in that age group yourself. I don't know how.
Yeah. I found something out from one of the witnesses in the cases. She is the girl who was on the case podcast that you guys have listened to, who did talk about being groomed, who had the crush on Robert Devine, and she was groomed by him. Luckily, she made some mistakes that got her away from him, and kind of ticked him off. But I forgot what I was saying. I completely forgot what I was going to say, but we also need to put this out there that she did say that these two men were groomed, and that doesn't take away what they did, but they were groomed. She was a witness to it, and they were they were groomed to, you know, to be puffed up. They were groomed to be his underlings, you know, Robert Devine.
Divine's underlings, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that's all over the internal report. Like Deputy Holmes is like saying it over and over and over again. So it's the cycle of grooming too.
If you ever
Systemic.
read a book called Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker, it talks about that. And it talks about being a victim, you would think would turn you against that, but it actually is more percentage-wise that you then become the predator because you're a victim of it. So
Seems like all
one
the
of
time that happens. A
yeah.
lot.
So I don't ever justify it that way, but it is also understandable how someone gets to a point that does certain things.
It's even like bullying. The same thing with like when I was a kid, I got bullied and I imagine I bullied some kids back. Like that just kind of how the schoolyard is. I mean, that's just it's called like learned behavior. Like you become it's weird.
I did. I was mercifully bullied, called the N-word from my first day of first grade for many years. And when I got to a place where I was stand up for myself, I ended up a few years later bullying someone. I'm like, why? And then I was like, why did I do that? You know, like,
that's what you knew.
Because
I don't know if I was bullied, but we used to play mob. Like I grew up in North Jersey. We played like if you wanted to, like, we controlled the playground. Like we collected lunch money from kids, and we did things. And like
it's like mafia.
Now I'm like, that's maybe why I did really well undercover against the mob. But again, it was,
you had a racket going.
Schoolyard. But I look back and I'm like, God damn, I was a bully. You know.
Hey, we live and grow. Thank God.
Yeah.
You know, it's some of us grow up and get beyond middle school.
Well, yeah, hopefully you evolve to a point.
Yeah, hopefully you're not getting even worse in your 20s and 30s and 40s like these people seem to be doing. Yeah, this has been tough to talk about. You know, it's funny because you talked about that, like the ones who get groomed end up being, you know, perpetrators later. Like there's this guy P. Diddy who's in the news, and it seems like if you go back in his history, it seemed like it happened to him too, maybe. So, you know, and the Hollywood thing too, like that seems like it happens a lot in music and Hollywood and entertainment. So there's a lot to unpack, but you can't excuse his behavior.
No,
I mean, all the stuff that he allegedly has done, it's not excusable because it might have happened to him when he was younger.
Yeah. And he made the choice to walk into that apartment that night. He made the choice to do what he did to Sandra that night, even beyond the other stuff that he had already done to her. But he made that decision that night to do what he did, and it's only on him.
That's right. Especially to a woman and an unborn child. I mean, that's just
his child.
And his child, like, his kid. I mean, how messed up can you be right there? That just, some people would just love to have there's some people who can't have children, you know, and they would be so happy to be in that situation. And just to, you know, it's unspeakable.
It was going to bring his house down. And I don't mean just like his actual physical house. His whole world was going to crumble if
deal with it, though. You know,
said anything.
Now his life is really ruined, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, and he ruined so many others.
Exactly.
You know, but I mean, I can't explain what was going through his head, but that's why he did what he did. It's because he knew that she was saying too much information was getting out there, and she had the ability to ruin all three of their lives. Well, you know what? Payback is a B, and he's learning that right now as he's sitting in jail.
He'll learn it later.
Mm-hmm.
Because now he's in probably protective lockup.
Yeah. It's gonna get worse and worse. He's got a lifetime to learn it now.
Yep. I hope he's on suicide watch right now, and they're paying attention to him, not like they did Epstein.
What are your final? We've been 2 hours now. What are your final thoughts? And make sure you also promote yourself. Anything you want the supporter, the viewers to do to help you out, but definitely make sure you promote your links and all that. We'll go to Missy first.
Okay. If anybody can please go follow my page. It's A Mixed Girl in a Mixed Up World. I will be doing lives hopefully in a few weeks. Just promoting Sandra's case even more. And definitely go to the justiceforsanderbirchmore.com page, and that you can get to the Facebook and the Twitter pages from there. But those two things, go to A Mixed Girl in a Mixed Up World on YouTube, because I do have a YouTube page, and justiceforsanderbirchmore.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm going to try to put that in the chat too, so people can check that out. Justiceforsanderbirchmore.com. People definitely need to check that out. And Rob, what are your final thoughts? And make sure you promote to Sarah One Consulting.
Well, yeah, Sierra One Consulting, I do security assessments and evaluations, but this is a side thing for me. I do cyber stuff, but this to me, and I'm talking to some folks about maybe starting my own podcast just on, and like it's one of those things that, like, what do you want to focus on to a point? And I think the injustice of things like this, both when cases like this are dropped, and then when you have cases like Karen Reed that are like over prosecuted. Because again, I can't imagine being innocent accused of something either. And then I can't imagine this one where you definitely have a crime that is just like glossed over as suicide. And I think I'm going down that route to a point to just try to use a voice to the people that aren't getting justice. But I saw another day the New York Times was these cold cases from 20 or 30 years ago, and there was like 5 of them that people got on, and they're crazy. And I want to talk to the cops, like, after 30 years, what did you do different that got you down this road to get somebody? Because I think that's the ultimate, like, when someone thinks they got away with it for 20, 25 years, and then you get this one cop that just, I'm not quitting. I'm going to find something. And those are the good cop stories. And then you have ones like this that are obviously different. So I'm thinking of going down that road to a point. But I think on this case, this is the tip of the iceberg. I think there's going to be a lot more coming out. And I think it's going to be things that you don't see, because what's obvious has an underground thing that when you start looking at people's text messages and emails that they don't think anyone's looking at, you're going to get a lot more information. But you also have to evaluate what can you prosecute to what you can just suspect. So there'll be some questions in there, and everyone that watches these things, like, why this isn't happening. There's a big difference between looking at something and saying, okay, I think this happened, to being able to prosecute it in court. Because I do always think that you have to have the preponderance of the evidence to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the ultimate thing in our justice system. I would much rather have a guilty person on the street than an innocent person in jail. So it's one of those balances between the two. So with this one, I think you're going to see a lot more. I think this was just the tip of the iceberg. And I think you're going to see a lot of things that come out that a lot of people have a vision of. And I think there's going to be even more, because a lot of dirt's going to come out.
Let's hope so. I want to thank you both for being on our show, but even more than that, for speaking out. For Missy, you've done a lot this year, especially for Cinder Birchmore. So thank you for doing that, and the whole community really appreciates it. And Rob too, you got into this, and really appreciate someone, former FBI agent, coming on our show 3 times in a row and talking about Karen Reed and Cinder Birchmore. It's really an honor to have both of you on the show tonight. And I don't say that a lot. I don't, me, I'm a little reserved. I'm not like super hype guy. But you're both awesome. Thank you so much for being here tonight, and thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Yeah.
Have a great night. And again, Sierra One Consulting. You can hire Rob. You heard what his vision. Definitely, I hope people check him out. And we put his link in all night in the chat, so I know a lot of people saw it. And we just did justice for Cinder Birchmore. Is also the link is in the chat, so check that out, people, on your way out. Thank you so much again, Missy and Rob. We'll check you later. Thank you guys so much. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we're the Young Jerks. I want to go over like super chats and also like Venmos if there are any. I saw some people were freaking out in the chat. I guess we had some trolls in there. Whatever. I know we didn't have our super mod team tonight. They not enough of them around. MJ's been dealing with a lot of family stuff, so she's our like go to all the time. And Jen and Stephanie are awesome. They work a lot, as well as Miss Shorty. They all work. So I love our ladies that moderate. They can't always be here. So, but I saw Jen come in. She just cleaned up. She got rid of them all. So I know a bunch of you were in the chat complaining, but our ladies showed up and they cleaned house. I did add Scott McGinnis, I think, as a new mod here, because he's always here. He's a good guy, and I think he'll do a good job too. So I did. He's the first guy. He's the first guy moderation on the mod team for the Young Jerks. I'm looking for Street Squirrel. I was going to add him too if he's around, but I think we're fine on mods. Our mods, I like them. They don't over moderate, and they did end up coming in and cleaning up a couple trashy people that were in our chat. I don't know what's up with those people. I could see why people got a little mad about the maybe that people weren't moderating right away, just because of how awful some of those comments are. I get it. Yeah, I guess this guy, Terry Grayson or whoever, I saw some of the comments. They were pretty awful. But we took care of it. I want to thank everyone who made donations tonight. A lot of super chats came in tonight. Thank you very much for supporting us. I think we got a couple more super chats. Let me just check. Yes, we did. Oh my God. Dreamer Thinker is very generous. Thank you so much. $50 says Michael, a nod to Sean. You do such a fantastic job as a host. You are succinct, smart questions. And then you listen. Thank you. Take an extra gummy tonight. It's funny, I don't really do the gummies. The edibles don't work for me. It's some people. It's funny because the Boston Globe wrote a story about this a few years ago. I was one of the people who brought this up, that edibles never have worked for me. I don't know what it is. Other people, we found out some of the same thing, but they think there's an enzyme that some of us don't have to break it down, so it doesn't work. So I'll be smoking an extra, you know what, tonight on you instead, Dreamer Thinker. Thank you so much. Very generous donation. Thank you. AHDH in the making says, I think the feds have phone records also from Canton Stoughton. Could be. It's funny because I'm gonna have to let me increase the screen size. There we go. I can never see the goddamn comments anymore. I keep saying I'm gonna get new glasses. I really do need new glasses. It's funny. I got my car fixed, the air conditioning. That was like 6 months in the making. You guys got to realize I never have time. I'm trying to make more time for myself and my family. And I thought I might have more time this week, but then the Cinder Birchmore stuff happened. I've been trying not to take as many dog customers on. I've been working too much for too long. And it's nice to know that I need to slow down, but it's still hard to do. So there's a lot of things I need to catch up on. I got my teeth done this year. I got my air conditioning fixed in my car. I got the smoke detector fixed. Then I got to get my glasses. All right, I'm going to check the Venmos real quick. I want to thank everyone who's been watching and listening and supporting us. And again, I want to thank Rob D'Amico, retired FBI agent. phenomenal guy, really good guy. Like you could tell he really cares about ethics and doing the right thing. I'm really glad he comes on the show, and Missy obviously has been phenomenal. All right, I want to thank Mary Jane. Mary Jane W. She sent $5 tonight. Thank you so much, Mary Jane. Very thankful for your donation tonight. Thank you so much. That was on the Cash App. And on Venmo, I had a donation come in from Deborah the other day, and that was for $20. She said, "Thank you for all you do." I don't think I thanked her the other day for that. Thank you so much. All right, so we're the Young Jerks. I will check you out real soon. I'm not sure when. We'll see. I want to thank everyone who's been watching, especially, and the donations and the super chats and all the messages. Thank you so much. And I'm just checking. Oh, the Galera's here. Hey, Galera. Hey, Miss Shorty. Hey, everyone. I see. Sometimes I don't want to leave because I like my chat. I like seeing you all there, and it's hard to leave. Look, the Galera's saying hi to some people. He's here too for the same reason. Hey, Galera. Joe Biffles' infused pre-roll. I'll take that. I will not turn down an infused pre-roll. I love those. Usually I like to roll my own, but I would not mind a dispensary infused pre-roll. I would not turn that down. Yeah, it was weird too, right? The critics tonight of Cinder Birchmore, whoever that troll was, like some really sick people out there. I don't know. I can't imagine who that might be. Yeah, we all love the Galera. All right, everyone, have a great night. I will see you all soon. I don't know when. Whenever we decide to do a show again. We'll talk soon. Have a great night.